Thank you for joining me here today. I'm going to do another Ask Me Anything type question today. This one comes from Luke/Laura, and the question is about considering myself gender fluid. Do I consider myself gender fluid? Do I sometimes feel male, sometimes feel female, and vice versa? Is this something that I find myself switching between different genders? And I think the easiest way to answer this question is to say that I don't think of myself that way. I feel like for most of my life, I present a male gender form, which is how I'm seen by family, by friends, by work colleagues, people who know me. But I have almost like a channel or a stream of femininity, which in day-to-day life is closed off. It is suppressed or subdued. And I feel like that is something that tends to be raised in you as you're growing up. And for my purposes, I feel like it was something I shut off at an earlier age as a child and suppressed it in order to seem more, more like a guy, more like, one of the guys that's out and about there. So I don't feel as if I move between male and female gender in my brain. I don't feel like I'm fluid between different genders. I feel like most of my life I have had this kind of river of masculinity and a dammed river of femininity. And what has happened to me more recently, what could have happened to me as a younger man, things that have happened at certain times in my life when I was younger, back in my 20s, in my early 30s, there have been times when I've undammed that river. And I've allowed the femininity to flow from me. But I feel that because of how I kind of raised myself, and we'll follow this river analogy. I'm going to beat this one to death, this river analogy, because I'm liking it. I feel like what's happened is that through the kind of damming process of the feminine side of the river, you've now got a situation where the rivers have diverged. So what could have been, I think could easily for me have been, a single flowing river of masculinity and femininity, expressed and free to mingle and interact. I feel like the way I grew up, the way I was brought up, I shut one of them down, and now it has its own distinct separate path, which you're looking at. And I don't know how true this is. There's nothing in terms of psychology or science behind this. This is kind of my gut feeling based on who I am. My feeling is I could have been a gender fluid person. I could have mixed and matched my clothing. But by shutting down one part of me, by suppressing that part of me, I've encouraged two separate streams, two separate flows. And whilst my personality is effectively the same, I'm effectively the same person, whether I am presenting as male or presenting as female. I'm equally as sarcastic. I'm equally as interested in film and books and all sorts of other stuff. I don't have different interests based on gender expression. I have slightly different ways of expressing myself, but I've kind of channeled it into two paths: regular male and an out and out female persona, if you will. And I think that came from my upbringing. That suppression of one form, which has now, the suppression I feel has caused it to have its own path. And therefore, I'm struggling with whether I would ever want to try and bring those back together. I'm quite happy with the way that they're divergent paths, this male gender expression, this female gender expression. I'm quite happy with that. I like that. I think it's an interesting way. I can indulge both. I can have fun with both. And I really like looking as feminine as I can. And I really like giving full throat to that feminine gender expression. I like that. I like everything about that. But at the same time, I like going back to the other way. I really do like that. But I don't feel like I think differently, and that's the key thing. For me, it's very much surface level. I feel like I'm the same person underneath. I think because I dress quite regularly, I don't get those intense urges to dress because it's something that's indulged quite often. The way I dress at the moment, the amount of dressing I do is plenty for me to maintain a nice balance. I don't feel like I don't get those urges where, oh my God, I feel so, this is such a Juliet day for me. I must dress. Oh, I can't dress. This is really getting me down. I don't get that anymore. I dress regularly enough that I don't get the peaks and troughs. I've got a nice sort of balance going on. I think if I dressed far less, I'm sure that you would get a lot of pent up desire. You get a lot of pent up longing to dress, feeling like you're unable to indulge that part of your personality. And maybe that might feel more masculine v feminine. I need to be Juliet, I need to be female. But I really don't get that. And it may just be my experience, it may be how I am, it may be the scenario in which I live, but that's not something I feel. So going back to the original question, this idea of going between feeling male and feeling female one day, I really don't get that at all. Internally, I feel as I am. I approach things in a completely logical way. I have the same approach whether I'm presenting as male or presenting as female. And I don't feel like I address the world in a particularly different way, other than the fact that Juliet tends to be a bit more out there. She is more expressive, more... she will commit faster and, let's say, harder to risky endeavours or to fun activities. When I'm not Juliet, I tend to be quite reticent. I tend to hang back. I think about things too much. Sometimes I don't act. Juliet is more prone to acting. She is more likely to just throw herself into a situation and go for it. But that's mainly, I think, based on the fact that she's crossing a societal line. It's cross-dressing. It is not, you're already out there, so taking a few extra steps doesn't feel like a big journey. It feels like a small extension of something you're already doing on a daily basis. So that's my answer to the question. I think it is a very interesting question. It's one I put a little bit of thought into, but it's a hard one to answer. I'm sure everyone feels very, very different, but I haven't met many people who genuinely feel like they switch between. I always think of gender fluid people as being people who kind of have everything mixed in. It's like they're like an alloy of male and female as opposed to a compound. And I feel like I'm kind of like that, except I'm more like I'm like two different things stuck together, because I've separated out those male and female sides of my personality, and I've compartmentalized them, as opposed to letting them be one expressive person. And that's my upbringing. I'm fairly sure that's just hiding things away in my youth and finding a way to deal with this. And I'm quite happy with that. I don't feel any need to change that. I have no desire to start introducing eyeliner into my daily activity. I've no desire to start introducing, let's say, blouses into, blouses with a pair of jeans and trainers. I don't have that desire. I don't want to be gender fluid in that sense. I'm very happy having an either or situation and with how that's presenting and being dealt with at the moment. So I want to say thank you very much to Luke/Laura for that question. I thought that was a really interesting one, and yeah, definitely a fun one to tackle. So thank you very much for that. I really appreciate the time you took to send me that question. If anyone has any comments, please let me know down below. If you have your own questions you want to ask me, you can do so through my website, which is www.julietnoir.uk, or through my email address, which is julietisnoir@gmail.com. I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks for joining me here today, and as ever, bye! Bye!